What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Auto Auction Rebuilds. It is November the 9th, and it is about 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I have to get going soon, so we're going to run through your new series, the weekly Copart auction results. We're going to jump into this first with a 2000 Chevy Corvette. You guys may remember this one. What I find interesting about this is, if you remember when we got to the car, the windshield was completely caved in. Here, the windshield is still intact, so I wonder what happened. You can clearly see here, there was a key attached to the steering wheel, and by the time we got to it, that key was missing. So this car was a run and drive, and it had keys, and by the time we got to it, somebody had cut the keys and taken off with them. So salvage title, undercarriage damage, 151,000 miles, 5.7 liter V8 obviously, and it was a manual transmission. This car sold for $4,900. Now you guys can be the judge. Comment down below if you think this was a good deal or not. Personally, I think $4,900 for a manual transmission Corvette, I don't think it's a horrible deal. The car obviously needed quite a bit of work, but I think it was a decent price. Next, and I almost hesitate to even put this one on here, but it was in the walk-around last week. I didn't look at all the pictures. I thought the only damage was on the driver's side. And then we got around to the passenger side, and I realized this car was not for me. It was a 2013 Dodge Charger Daytona package. Hemi, of course. Mileage 124. Oh, wow. Damage ratio 232%. Estimated repair cost $30,000. It was a pure sale, and she sold for $3,500. Next is one you guys really overwhelmingly wanted me to get, and this was the 2006 Ford Mustang GT. This was a run and drive with very minor hail damage, guys. Very minor hail damage. It sold pure sale for $3,550. It was a manual transmission, 4.6 liter, and it had that beautiful red interior. Absolutely gorgeous. 128,000 miles on the clock, and I was serious about this one. So I ran a Carfax on it, and as it turns out, this car was meticulously maintained its whole life. So this was a good one, guys. $3,500 out the door. You're probably talking about $4,000 out the door. You'll have to comment below and tell me if you think that is a good deal for a salvage title 2006 Ford Mustang. I don't know if it was a great deal, but I think this was still a reasonable deal. You could have literally driven this car exactly the way it sets. Exactly the way it sets. This car will probably last, whoever bought it, who did buy it. It's United States, that's all it says. This is probably going to last somebody a long, long time. Next, we have that 2016 Honda Civic with 40,000 miles on it. Again, another hail damage car. Beautiful car. But it did have significant hail damage, guys. Look at that. Look at the hood right there. I mean, the whole car was like that, guys. It sold for $8,600. $8,600. Estimated retail value is $15,000. And if that is correct, then $8,200 isn't a bad deal. I think this is a great car for, well, this would be a great car to buy like your son or your daughter that's off to college, going away to college. This will be something that's going to be reliable for a long time to come, and it still looks good. It still looks good. Now, granted, when you get right on top of it, yeah, it looks a little rough, and it definitely needed a battery. But aside from that, this is a great car that's ready to go at least another 100,000 miles without having to worry about it at all. Beautiful car, 1.5 liter. It's going to be great on gas. It's sold. It's done. $8,600. You're probably talking about $9,500 or so out the door, somewhere around the $10,000 range. You drop your comment below and tell me if you think this was a good deal, a fair deal, or a bad deal. Now, this one is an interesting one too. This is the 2008 Infiniti G35 that is listed as a run, but not a drive. Now, when we got there, we found out that it does actually drive forwards and backwards. So, I don't know. Another interesting thing is this one sat at $80 for the longest time. Nobody bid on it. And if you look here, in the video I showed you, there was significant cracking of panel bond. This had been wrecked in the back before. It had been salvaged in the past from a rear-end collision, and the bodywork was shoddy. So by the time we got to it, there was all kinds of cracking on the back here. But in these pictures, when the car was actually delivered to Copart, nothing. There's no pictures of any of that damage. Now, there is paint damage on the trunk, which we saw in person. That's there. But all of that panel cracking in the back is not. If it had gone for $80, I would have bid on it all day long. But it went for $22.50, and I felt like that was just a little too risky considering it had been salvaged in the rear before. And this time they have it listed, and this is something I didn't catch while I was there. It's listed as primary damage, undercarriage, and they show a picture of the front end. So the rear end collision, when you first see it, you think, oh, it was in a light rear end collision. It barely got tapped. But the reality is that was previous. This time, I think there is damage up front. So I think we did good to steer clear of this one. Next, we have a 2015 Honda Accord that had, 100,000? 93,000 miles on the odometer. Another hail damage car. I don't remember how bad the hail was on this one. Look at all the handprints all over it. Wow. That's creepy. There's a lot of handprints all over that car. Very creepy. Definitely a hail damage car, but a Honda Accord, they're good cars, guys. They're big, comfortable, nice, reliable cars. Again, hail damage. It says damage ratio is 97%. Estimated repair cost $8,000. Estimated retail value $8,000. So this one may not be such a good deal. You have to take into consideration, number one, it's going to be a rebuilt title car. Sold for $6,400, so you're probably talking about $7,000 or so out the door. If the car is really only worth $8,300 and you paid $7,000 for it, you've got $1,300 to work with. That's not possible. And you're not going to get clean title retail out of a rebuilt title car. So, yeah, if that is correct, this wasn't a good deal at all. This wasn't. But I will say the car was relatively clean. It looked decent. It smelled all right. And it ran perfect. So, yeah, I don't know. I can't explain it, guys. Comment below. Maybe it's worth more than that. Sometimes these estimated retail values can be off. They can definitely be wrong. So maybe that's what happened here. Speaking of Hondas, here is the 2013 Honda Civic that we went and looked at. It was supposed to be a start, but not a drive. It's a flood car. Most of it was underwater. You guys remember this one. Like, most of this car had been underwater. By the time we got to it, though, it would no longer start. If you remember correctly, we went out there, put the booster pack on it, and could not get it to crank over at all. It made no attempt to crank. So either something finally just died or corroded in the starter or somewhere in the ignition system, it's hard to say, or if the motor is just completely locked up. Hard to say as well. 105,000 miles, and it sold for $2,000. $2,000 for a car that was almost completely... Look, I think you can see the waterline on the dashboard here. Center picture, right? This car was underwater. Yeah, it's a wrap for that one. Another one I wish I had bid on because it sold for $850. You know, out the door, probably $1,100 for this. 98 Ford Expedition with 111,000 miles. And I know that it's not most likely your style, and it's not mine either, but I give the people props for doing something different with their car. Everybody just drives their car around as it is. Very few people actually go out and really do something to make it their own. When you consider the percentage of people that own cars versus the percentage of people that actually customize their cars, no, this is not my taste, but I give them respect for doing something different with their vehicle. And honestly, with this, if you did a little bit of body work and you put some wheels on it and you get the front end put back together, this thing would still look like a beast. And again, guys, this thing only has 111,000 or 119,000 miles on it. The frame damage is just a tad bit of a bend right here. That's it. I don't know if you know this or not, but these Expeditions are tough. These are tough vehicles, man. They're four-wheel drive. They're big. They're heavy. They make great winter beaters. And this one even had air conditioning. So it's not just a beater with a heater. It's got heat and air conditioning as well. This thing will probably last you a long time, and it gives you a solid winter vehicle and inclement weather vehicle. It's perfect as hell. A storm chaser vehicle. There's so much you could do with this. For $1,100, I think this one was a steal. And speaking of steals, 08 BMW X3 with 88,000 miles. You guys remember this one? This thing was pretty much immaculate inside and out. And I say pretty much because obviously the exception is the fact that the whole front suspension is gone on the passenger side. So it needs a wheel, it needs a tire, and it needs really everything under here. I believe the caliper is still hanging there. So you're going to need the rotor, you're going to need the spindle, the hub bearing, you're going to need the outer tie rod at a minimum. Those are the things that you're going to need. But this thing ran perfectly. Didn't have any warning lights on other than a TPMS light. I'm telling you guys, and with 88,000 miles, you could have put a suspension back under this thing and been on the road in a weekend. I looked at the subframe. The subframe looked like it was fine. I think he could have mounted a control arm back on there and a strut. And I would replace the strut. But I think you could put basically an entire suspension under the passenger front end and you'd be back on the road in a weekend. In a weekend. This thing went for $2,100 and sold. Sold with 88,000 miles on it, man. $2,100. I think that was a steal. And since we're still on the subject of steals, how about that Mercedes 240D 1980 model went for $425, guys. Yes, it was crunched in the front. Yes, it was crunched in the back. No, it is not a run and drive, but I believe if you had got this hood open, guys, if you could have gotten that hood open and put a jump on it, this thing had 311,000 miles. She would have run and drove forever. You could have continued driving this car. No, it's not perfect, but you know what I would have done? I would have, let's see if we can get a view of the front end right here. I probably would have put a Porta Power from Harbor Freight up on the front end here, straightened it out as best I could, probably put another hood on it, and as for the back end, I may not have even messed with it. This car literally, it was in such good condition. I hate that it went for $425 and I didn't bid on it. I should have bid on this. I should have bid on this. And it sold originally October 27th. The seller declined $125. Are you kidding me? Looks like it is now on its way to Mexico. And how about that 91 Pontiac Firebird that we looked at, man? This thing was toast. It sold for $400 as well. Although there are quite a few good parts on here, I think. I'm pretty sure the driver door is good. Taillight assemblies are good. There's plenty of exhaust components, the transmission, the wheels, the hatch, the windows, the rear seats probably, and that's honestly probably about it. I mean, it had 188,000 miles on it anyway, so that's kind of up there for these old ones, for these old GMs, and it was just a 5-liter on top of that, so unfortunately, in this generation, these were just gutless cars, man, but still, $400 for a 91 Firebird with a V8. And how about that 2005 Dodge Ram 1500, the one that had a V6 in it? Was a theft recovery. I did not know this, but it was a clean title, certificate of title recovered theft, 3.7-liter V6. It had 2 tires flat on the passenger side, which I assume they were, something happened there. I don't think those tires are just going to air up, not for long anyway. The ignition was busted. You can kind of see it right there. Spray paint stripes, 154,000. Like the further you get down the rabbit hole, the more it's like, no. But it sold relatively cheap. Trucks in Oklahoma tend to go for a lot of money. This one went for $1,800. So if it really does have a clean title and not a rebuilt title, $1,800, not a horrible deal. Not a horrible deal. Definitely is going to need some work. She's rough. That's the thing. She's rough. But if you needed a work truck, I think this was perfect. And honestly, $1,800 for a good work truck is not a bad deal. Not a bad deal at all, guys. I think this one did all right. This one, however, is another story. 1985 GMC Jimmy. It's listed as a run and drive, but if you guys remember right, we put the jumper pack on it and we could not get it to start. Now, why that is, I don't know. Maybe somebody messed with it, or maybe all of those switches and knobs and everything that were installed, all that aftermarket stuff, maybe, just maybe, there's a certain combination of switches you have to turn to get it to actually work. I have no idea, and we didn't spend a lot of time on it. But this is a clean title. It says it's mechanical damage. Remember, guys, and again, this is listed as a gasoline engine, and it's not. This is a Banks turbo diesel. At least okay, I don't want to say Banks turbo diesel. Banks probably makes like the charge pipes, maybe the intercooler, and maybe the intake or something like that. But it's a diesel engine. It's a diesel engine. On October 27th, they declined 4,200. October 30th, they declined 4,200. November 3rd, it only got 2,400. They declined that as well. This has a buy it now on it of $5,200 or $5,700, guys. Yes. By the time you're talking about fees and everything out the door, you're looking at over $6,000 for this thing. And I'm just not seeing it. I don't know. I don't know. This isn't my thing anyway. So, maybe it's worth $6,000 to somebody. But to me, for something I can't even get running, there's no way I would pay $6,000 for this. Next, you may remember the 2011 BMW X5 that we went and looked at. We couldn't get it to crank, but we never did quite figure out if that was because my booster pack was too low on juice or if there was some type of an electrical issue. This one is kind of confusing. It's a clean title, listed as mechanical damage. And let's see, it went for $3,950 on the 27th. It went for $4,050 on November 3rd. Estimated retail value is around $13,000. They have a buy it now of $5,100. Now, I don't know if this thing is really worth $13,000, but it has 110,000 miles on it, and if it does truly have a clean title, I mean, it looks good. It looks good, but this is what's concerning to me. The fact that when you turn the key, I couldn't get it to do anything. You can see it's in neutral, so it's in tow mode, basically. Somebody got under there and had to put the transmission in neutral for tow mode. You've got a lot of covers. The intake pipe has been removed. That's something that makes me think flood. When I see that, I immediately think flood. I don't know. If it's something that you could fix relatively cheaply, I think at $5,100, it could be a good deal. You might be able to make a little bit of money on it. But for me, something like this is just far too risky. And speaking of BMWs, how about that 2007 BMW 550i? Yes, it was a buy it now $1,500. I wanted it so bad. And a lot of you pointed out that there was some kind of damage to the rear end that had been repaired. I don't see it. The lines look good. I don't see anything wrong with the rear of the car. 163,000 miles on the odometer of this. And if you remember right, we got out there and fired it up, and it was rattling, clinking, clunking. It died, and we couldn't really get it to run again. It never really ran. It started, but it didn't run for any length of time. Looks like they finally let it go for $1,200. Now, this is the 4.8-liter V8, guys, and I was aware of the issues with it, as are most of you by now. It's pretty much common knowledge. The 4.8s are junk. They have premature bearing failure. The main bearings end up getting particulate matter all up in the oil system, ends up clogging up the Vanos system, and they're notorious for timing chain tensioner failure as well. So at the end of the day, This is an engine that is just plagued with problems, and it's one you're just best to stay away from. And I knew that going into it, but I was like, man, if it's really $1,500 and it runs and it's not rattling or knocking, I'll take a risk on it for $1,500. I will. But as you heard when we got there, it was already done. That the engine is toast in this. That's at the end of the day. The engine in this car is absolutely junk. And how about the 1987 Chevy R10? Well, it seems like it's been corrected now to a C10, but it was listed as an R10. And I've never heard of that before, but so many of you commented and said that the R10 was the first year of fuel injection, and it was actually an R10. So maybe it is, maybe it's not. I have no idea. Clean title. It's listed as stripped for a reason. You can see that it's been bringing about the same, 475, 475, 525. It is not sold. They have a buy it now on this currently of, it's something to me that's ridiculous. It's like $2,700, and after fees, you're talking about $3,500 out the door. $3,500. It has no motor. Yes, it has a transmission, but let's be real. Are you going to use that transmission? I'm not. If I buy it, I am not going to go find a motor and stick it to an unknown transmission and hope it all works. Not going to happen. If I buy this, the transmission is coming out. So I'm going to do a motor and a transmission. And then you still have to hope that the rear differential is good as well. There's no seats. I don't believe there was any carpet. No, man. It needs body work, interior work, motor, transmission. Granted, the body is in pretty decent condition, but I couldn't spend $3,000 for this. How about you? Comment below. Would you pay $3,000 for this? Granted, it is an excellent platform to build on. It's pretty much a blank slate. It's a clean slate. You could do whatever you want with it. But to me, that's not worth $3,000. Now, guys, listen. This is not sponsored. I do not get paid anything for promoting AutoAuctions.io. It's a service I've been using for over a year now, and I find it so valuable that I share it with you guys. I can't stress enough how important this tool is. And I just found the other day that it has a search feature. So instead of me having to go to IAA and search and then have to go to Copart and search, I could do it all from right here. One-stop shop, man. It saves time, and time is very important. So I'm looking for a Geostorm, right? They don't exist anymore. Nobody has a Geostorm, but you go into make, model, Geostorm, you filter, you end up with this, right? Boom. And it shows you where they're at. You can look at the pictures. You can blow them up where you get very, very good detailed high-def pictures, right? Excellent. This means I can search IAA and Copart at the same time. One-stop shop. And the reason I like AutoAuctions.io so much is for things like this. The pictures. If you run a Carfax report on cars, you're not going to see any of this. It may say, yes, it had been salvaged, hit in the rear, but that's all you get. You don't know if it was hit a little bit or if it was hit a lot of bit. You have no way of knowing. So Carfax is important. I use Carfax mainly to see what the service history of a car was, how many owners it's been through. But I use AutoAuctions.io in conjunction with Carfax so that I can see if a car I'm looking at, which usually they have been run through the salvage auction at some point, I use this to see the pictures. You know, I have a car outside that has the whole side ripped off of it, right? The whole side is ripped off. It's a Pontiac Bonneville. Whole side is gone, but it has a clean title. The insurance company did not salvage it. So you could literally take a car just like this, has the side ripped off of it, and it could still be a clean title. And then you could put it back together and resell it, and Carfax may say, yes, it was involved in an accident, but it has a clean title. And unless you ran it through AutoAuctions.io, you would never know that your clean title car, look, here's a perfect example, completely accidental, didn't mean to do this. But right here, a Nissan Kawasaki, whatever, I don't know what this is, Canadian. Anyway, title type clean, all right, clean title, but the whole front end is ripped off of it. Now, this may not be the best example. This in Canada may mean something else than it does here in the United States. But regardless, what I'm saying is there are clean title cars being sold currently at auction that are destroyed. And someone can put those back together and still sell them as a clean title car. And unless you use this service to check for yourself, you're never going to know. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I got to get out of here because it is now 11:38. I want you to do me a huge favor. Okay, stay tuned for an upcoming video of the MGB because today I'm about to leave for Copart right now to do your walk around video. I am driving the MGB today, guys. That's a huge deal because it is 60 miles each way. I will have put over 120,000 miles. Yes, 120 miles on that car today. Okay, if it makes it. It's been sitting for over 14 years, so I have no idea if it's going to make the journey or not, but we're going to find out. So stay tuned. There's no backup plan. I have nobody following me. I have no help. All I have are a few basic tools in the trunk, and I'm going to take a car that's been sitting over 14 years, and we are going to see if she can make it to Copart and back over 120 miles today. So please stay tuned for that. I'm actually really digging this car right here, guys. Like, seriously digging this car right here. If you enjoyed the content, give the video a big thumbs up. Links to autoauctions.io and to Carfax, where you can get a Carfax report for $4.95, guys. $4.95, you can get a Carfax report. Links to both of these at the top of the comment section and the description below. Definitely check them out. Stay safe out there, buddy. I'll catch you all very soon in the next one.